So welcome to the Kanban Coaching Exchange for this month. We're really pleased to be joined by Rodrigo. Now, I met Rodrigo, I don't know him massively, but we were at a community event not so long ago where we were being introduced to some new content, and we were in the same group working together. And what I loved about Rodrigo were his opinions, his knowledge on Kanban, his ability to be able to talk up and be heard about things that are really important to us as Kanban professionals and trainers. So as soon as I met him, I thought, absolute no-brainer, get him along. And he's a Agile Coach trainer for Scrum and Kanban, and currently working in Scotiabank over in Canada, which might be sunny right now, I don't know, but it's about 1:30 in the day for him, so he's still got a full day after this. So I was really happy to get him along for this session. So I'd like to introduce you to Rodrigo. Take it away.
So thank you for inviting me here, Ellen. What I will show to you guys is a tool I have been using for some time, which I call a Kanban checklist, right? Not sure if you guys ever heard about the Scrum checklist, which is pretty famous in the Scrum community. It helps you to see, okay, what kind of places, or if you prefer, what kind of practices I'm not doing, sorry, that I still need to do. And although we have the KMM, the Kanban Maturity Model, being honest, is too complex for most people. Like, I'm not going to show Kanban Maturity Model when I'm going to give a consultant for a company in Brazil, and they just say, hey, Rodrigo, this is too much. We don't have time. I need to know how to steer in that direction. How can I do quick wins? So basically what I did is I pick up the Scrum checklist and say, okay, why don't we do something similar? But instead of focusing on Kanban, of course, let's focus on, sorry, instead of focusing on Scrum, of course, let's focus on Kanban. So I will share my screen. Just let me know when you guys can see it. And let me put you guys from this screen to this one. Yep. So basically what I did here is it's a short list. So we first have at any time, you must be observing them at all times and be able to identify them easily. Then we have what I'm calling the core of Kanban. The idea here is that if these items are not in place, they should be implemented as soon as possible, the famous ASAP. So basically, if you have anything that is not ticked here, you have a big problem. You need to solve it right away. Then we have some positive indicators, key indications of a good Kanban implementation. Then we have recommended but not necessary. Basically, the items here are normally necessary, but maybe you are not going to need all of them. So basically, you try them out. And then lastly, I put a little of KMM. I basically put the recommended cadences for each one of the levels. So we have maturity level 1, 2, 3, 4, right? That being said, I will zoom in each one of them. So if I go at any time, what I have here is you have no visible bottlenecks, no queue or blocks. So for example, if you are working just with one thing and you look at your board and you clearly see everything in review, Rodrigo, that's never happens. I know it happens all the time. I worked with a lot of things with that problem. You could right away say, hey, I have a visible bottleneck. So you're not going to tick that box, right? Next one, you couldn't have no impediments. And this should be like, from time to time, you should be checking if you're having impediments. But the key thing here is impediments that are constant. Things that always happens and you have the same kind of blocker, the same kind of impediment happening. So basically, if you are seeing this, you don't check, right? Next, WIP limits are in place and we are complying with them, which is basically you do have them, plus we are complying with them. Because if you have WIP limits, they are beautiful, they are in your columns, but you are not respecting them, you are not using them, you are breaking them for whatever reason, you actually don't have it, right? And the last one is clear priorities. So basically the idea from this force here is to fastly know if you have a huge problem. So some time ago I gave a consultant consulting for a company in Brazil which work with credit cards. Basically, they have the world marketing people from advocacy, lawmakers, everyone in the same company. And we went through some of the areas doing this activity. And the funniest thing was basically they say this, they just market this one. And I was like, are you guys sure? And they say, yeah, we don't have pure clarity, so we are not putting this one. We don't have any WIP limits, and we have visible bottlenecks everywhere. But we don't see any impediments on the sense of the team working. And then my question was, is your team delivering? And as you guys probably guessed, the answer was no, right? So what normally happens with these fours, if the person tries to tick one because they want to say, we are doing something right, normally you can just follow up with questions and you start discovering more information. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to bother. You can say you don't have impediments. But for me, Rodrigo, the impediments that you guys have is you guys are not delivering value to your customer. Then when we go to the core Kanban, what I put here firstly is the replenishment meeting. If you are doing the meeting by itself, and then as you guys can see, there are two items below. The first one is the thing always has something to pull recurring event or on demand. Doesn't matter, you're doing the event, great. Is it recurring or on demand? Great. But the thing is, if you don't have something to pull, what does this tell me? You guys don't have upstream in place, and if you have, is not a good one. And even we are not even doing any kind of decent refinement, if you prefer to call it with that name. As aliens, though I'm really agnostic to methodologies, frameworks, and name, I actually am the person that I don't care. Is more important, are you doing what you need? These folks, basically, they answer to me, we are doing. We do have the replenish meeting. We do have items to pull, but the problem was they didn't take the next one. Because what the next one tells me is the thing is only pulling ready for dev items, which goes with the definition of ready, the DOR, which basically you are ensuring that the items have all the information necessary to we start working on them. So the next one I have here on the right is if you are doing the Kanban meeting daily, whatever the name you're calling, and it can be 3 times a week, etc., once every day, right? So if you're doing great, the next question that I have inside it, the team is participating in this meeting, because I already work it in places that say, yes, we have the daily. And I bet, Ellen, you also saw that. We have the daily, just the managers. And you are, yeah, and where are the things? Oh, they are working because they don't have time for that. And you're like, okay, what is happening here? Yeah, we trust the managers. Okay, to bring the thing impediments, to say everything that is happening, there is a problem. The next one is actually people are presenting the problems and impediments. So I'm even checking here how effective this daily is, right? We are also discussing impediments and blocked items, and then I put 20 minutes or less, right? You probably guys know the daily is more common, 15 minutes or less. I always prefer to say 20, and the only reason behind that is 5 minutes per day will not kill anyone. And I already saw some coaches, scrum masters, delivery managers being really harsh on the time, saying, yeah, my thing is doing 17 minutes and 30 seconds, so I need to make it go with 15. And are your team being effective? Yes. 2 minutes and a half is not going to make a lot of difference in the end of the day. You have a problem if it's 30 minutes, 45, 1 hour, and a lot of things are still that. Then the next one we have here is the thing retrospective. Are you doing the thing retrospective? Great, but are you selecting the kaizens to be implemented? So are you actually finding continuous improvement items and implementing them? And it's really important here to remember that phrase that says that the person who has the biggest problem is the one that say they don't have a problem. because they are not even able to say, what kind of problem do I have, right? They are not even identifying. So that's for me, I would call a red flag if we are not doing this. The other thing, this is what will make the Kanban evolution actually take effect. If you're doing the Kaizens, doing the improvement items, you are going to get there. Then we actually having these Kaizens presented. They are being, basically I'm calling them here improvement proposals, and the things is honest and transparent during the retrospective. So here is in the sense of people are actually telling the truth. I do love the concept of the smoke squadron, right? And oh, they are asking the link. Let me already share that so I don't forget. Instead of a link, I will put the file right away here. There you go, guys. So the smoke squadron basically is that guys that do acrobacies and they throw smoke for the airplanes, do maneuvers in the air. It's really fun. The thing is, they always do a debriefing where they always take their, so that's why people call you have a hot shoulder. It's come mostly from the military because your patent is in your shoulder. So what they do, they take the patent and leave outside of the debrief room, because it doesn't matter if you are a captain, a general, even a soldier. If I make a mistake and I crash on you, we both die, because we don't have time to eject. It's too fast, too close. So the risk is really there. So what they do is like, it doesn't matter where your hand is. We are going to be transparent and say, hey, let's say, for example, I'm flying with, let's pick someone with the camera on. I'm flying with Tony, and I will just, let's say, Tony is my general. I'm just a soldier, and I say, hey, Tony, at that maneuver, you went too close. We were just inches of hitting each other. And instead of she's going, it doesn't matter, you're just a soldier. We are going to, okay, what happened? How we are going to avoid this situation in the future, right? So this is specifically thing they say we were doing, and they say, we do have this, but they didn't mark this one. And the reason for that was they were actually afraid of telling the problems to their management, because normally the management was like, we don't have a problem. And then they think, oh, you are the problem. Solution, you take the problem out, right? So this also at the time told me, okay, I need to do some kind of workshop with the management team, which we did, explaining today why, try to explain. I always bring this smoke squadron example and tell them people are not telling to be picky, they are trying to improve. So always be transparent and see every critic, every feedback in the sense of a positive light, even the negative feedback. Then the next one we have is the flow. If you're using the flow concept, which basically I'm checking what they have there. So actually the columns on the Kanban show the work being done, because the most common thing I see is people doing to do, doing, done, and then tell me, yes, we are doing Kanban and we are doing great. And the next thing is, because they learn it somewhere, they add a column, call it block it. And then basically I want to die or hang myself if you have a blocked column. And if anyone here have a blocked column, please tomorrow remove it. Use the flag feature in your Jira, Azure. Every tool has some kind of flagging feature. Basically, actually change the color of this item instead of having a blocked column. So the thing I'm checking here is, can I know what kind of work they are doing, right? Then the next one is talking about classes of services being defined. And normally no one takes that one, because basically they ask, what the hell is this, Rodrigo? And then I say, okay, don't worry, let's talk more, because again, everything that I put here, my idea is how to initiate a conversation where I have more knowledge of their company without having to interview 5, 6, 7 people without any feedback, even not knowing which kind of direction, discussions or questions to make, right? Next one, we do have clear commitment points, both internal and external. Normally external for the client, can be an internal client perceive, and it can even be like the external client, can be someone we are providing a service, right? And the last one is there is only one item in expedite at any time, which that's also a big problem, because when people learn the concept of expedite, normally what they do, everything is expedited. And they start, oh no, we actually need 2 or 3 expedite because our system is different, and they are not getting the importance of saying, hey, you have a priority to one item. This should be enabled all the time. And it actually helps you to focus on something that for some reason you lost the date or are about to lose the date, some huge problem that surfaces in production, or any kind of emerging requirement because for some reason, and this happened with me once in a startup, was our biggest client. We couldn't say no. Didn't make any sense. Ever no it did, but we needed to expedite that item. So we are basically informing everyone, hey, the company is making a decision here. It's maybe not the right one, but this item is right now priority number 1. If everything is delayed to deliver this item, this is fine. And next one we have here is monitoring following indicators. Basically, I'm talking here on metrics, so I want to know if they actually are looking at their defect rate, what is the initial quality that they have, what is the touch time, actually the time they are spending at work. This go really close with having the columns, because normally when you only have to do doing and done, you cannot know what is the touch time, which is the time someone is actually working on an item. If they are tracking the system lead time, and last one, if they are doing basically picking the shoe, because sometimes in this company, what they did is they told me they have this, but they didn't have that one. I discovered by this one because they didn't have detailed columns, and I tell them, you don't know actually, you are just saying every time this items is in progress, someone is working, which is not true. Right. I asked the developers. I interviewed 2 of them, and both of them said, "Yeah, it's doing, but sometimes I'm working in another item. It's on doing, but we are not actively working on this." Basically, this tell me how efficient they are. If anything, if they are metric, you are using this metric. I like to try to get to the .h, which is 80%, but it's very utopic. Best I ever got was .6, which is 60% efficiency, but I really have my red flag on, or my red sign on, if you are less than .3, which is 30% efficiency, which is basically what is telling me is you are picking too much work, and normally this happens because they don't even have WIP limits in place. Then we go to the second page, and we get to the key indicators of a good Kanban implementation. And basically this is like, okay, are we implementing Kanban well here? And these are basically open and simple questions. The first one is, are you being fun? Do you have high energy levels? Are people coming to our company and say, yes, I love to work here, right? Next one is discuss, criticize, and experiment with the process. Here I'm trying to understand if they actually value not only the feedback, but understanding that failure is an opportunity of getting better. Failure by itself is not a bad thing, right? But you have to look at this, you have to discuss, you have to criticize, experiment. Next one, overtime is fair and happens voluntarily. Here, what I'm really looking at is if they have what we call sustainable place, which is, can we work the way we are today for the years to come? Right? And normally what happens here is most of companies don't say that. And then when I check, there is some folks inside the company that are doing a lot of work, overwork. And normally the other thing that I get from the can of worms is you discover there is a Superman or a Superwoman inside the company that know it's all, have a lot of things that only this person can do. And then I am the person to say, hey, you are screwed already. And they ask, why I'm screwed? Imagine if someone comes from the market and just say, I pay you the triple you make. Rodrigo, that's never going to happen. It happens. It happens. The consultant I'm currently giving already warned the folks, they have a person that has excellent knowledge, does a lot, believe in the product. But if they go away tomorrow, there is no one who will be able to do what he does. So this also tells me, okay, I need to put some kind of thing in place to make this person replicate, or if you prefer, propagate their knowledge through other people. I'm not saying we are creating other people like that, because normally what happens is a really senior person has a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, worked since the beginning of the product, or even if a small company since of the beginning of the company itself, which is this case. And the problem is, I don't need someone exactly with the same knowledge, but I need that if this person is on vacation, if this person's go away, we are able to do what he does. Not a single person, but multiple people. The good or bad thing, depending on how you look at, is what happens is people say, no, Rodrigo, this is not going to happen. The guy's here for a long time. It's fine. And then someone in his family passed away, and he went away for 2 months. And then they told me, yeah, we are screwed if he is out. And I was like, I told you guys so. I told you guys so. Now we need to do something. In the end, what we decided in these specific cases, we are doing what I call a dev hour, which is basically an hour, 1 hour agenda that the team can came up and someone teach something. And normally what they are doing now is he is teaching you stuff he knows how to do really well to the other developers in the company, right? And the last one is really close to the one in the left, is see failure as an opportunity, discuss in the retrospective, and find the cases. Then basically this is what I ask every time I go to do a constant. I ask them, okay, I want your, whoever hired me, because it's some kind of manager, I want whoever is doing the product role to do this, and whoever you're calling your facilitator to basically go until here. And if they have time, look at the recommended, not always necessary, and then I start making questions and make annotations and decide what kind of approach I take, right? So here on the recommended but not necessary, what do I have? First is Tinhao has all the necessary skills to bring the backlog items to done, on the sense of, hey, this thing actually can get this item by themselves to done. Next one is they're not doing estimations. Rodrigo are telling, do you need that? No, that's why it's recommended, but not necessary. Rodrigo, I am fine for doing estimations, but maybe you say, I don't need it. It will make more sense to actually use SLAs, right? Use the system lead time, etc. Then the next one we have here, you do have a SDM or a flow manager. It's another common name, which is the service delivery manager or a scrum master. I am on the mindset, I don't care if you call your SDM a scrum master, because that's the name of your company and do Kanban. That is fine for me. Then the other question I have here is, do you actually have a SRM, which is a service request manager or a product owner? Right, so I'm basically checking, do you have some kind of roles there? And then I will prove if they actually need. The team members are not tied to specific roles. So basically here I'm trying to check if the team is self-organized and self-management, or they are saying, Rodrigo, you are just a quality assurance that all you do, you don't do anything else, right? Then I ask here, if you are putting the customer and lead time actually in effect, and then I have some follow-up questions with our items that don't meet the SLA are discussed at the retrospective. So basically, okay, when you are losing your SLA, are you picking this loss and actually discussing this one? You are measuring your lead time by class of service, and the team is communicated through it. Next one is, we do have the SLA, and with at least 80% of confidence in the due date. So I'm checking if the SLA is actually in place. And the next one, I'm asking more about the Kanban upstream itself, but in this case, like, do you have it? I have it. Okay. Is it a separate process and does not count in the lead time? Then the next one is at least 30% of the items are discarded. And this one is, in my opinion, a little bit polemic. And the reason is my take on why you need to have at least 30% of items discarded. Because if everything that it comes like an idea you are doing, you're probably doing some, right? You're doing stuff that the customer don't need. So you're just doing because a director, a VP, an executive, and the owner of the company asked it. So it really, again, red flag what is happening there. Every idea is done. Let's talk about it. And I even put what we is considering normal, which is around 50%. So every 10 ideas you discard, fine. Okay, this looks good. If they just answer okay, probably not even take a bad at it in the beginning because they will have bigger problems. But sometimes this is the biggest problem that they have, because if the thing is working really well, they are delivering, they are doing the kaizens, etc. And in the end of the day, they say, but we are not bringing value money to the company. We're not sure. Normally, this is where the problem will lie on, because they're not prioritizing the item rights. They're deciding that an idea needs to be made. They're not doing their upstream work right. Someone is responsible for the upstream, normally is the SRM or the PO, but I'm asking if actually there is someone there. Doesn't need to be these roles, but if someone who actually is responsible is doing that. And the two next one is at the end, the items have all the information needed for the execution. This go against with the definition of ready, that we are actually doing a good upstream. We are refining this item enough that we can work with them. And the last one is that we have WIP limits in place, which are minimum and maximum on the case of the upstream, because we don't want, do we put the minimum beside the maximum because we want to guarantee we have enough items to be selected at the replenishment. So that's a little bit different, but this is the kind of thing I put here just to know, because I normally don't fight if everything else is fine, right? If they're the person who is being responsible for the upstream is doing a good work, you normally don't even need the minimum, because they're going to look at their items and say, I need to refine more items, I need to do this. They will just carry on the good work, but it's good to know. Then we get to the KMM. So basically what I did here is, and this is more like if you actually want to go to the direction of the KMM, basically what I did here, I put the recommended cadences. So I have the recommended cadences for the level 1 of maturity, which is the team Kanban replenishment, the team Kanban meeting, the team retrospective. Then I put for the maturity level 2, which is workflow replenishment, workflow Kanban meeting, flow review, block clustering. And then what I have in the last part here is the level 3 and level 4. And it's replenishment meeting, service delivery review, improvement suggestion review, and delivery planning meeting for the level 3, and operational review and risk review for the level 4 of maturity. And again, this is really inspired in the Scrum checklist, which is from Ken, not Ken, it's Hendrik Kimber, if I'm not wrong, which is very famous for being the Spotify coach at the time. And that being said, I think I went through everything, and I would like to open for questions. Anything you guys want to know? Does it make sense for you guys? Any feedback?
So thank you very much for sharing your checklist with us, Rodrigo. And I've just reshared it in the chat channel if anybody's just joined us. I'll kick us off with a question while everybody is thinking about it. Is this checklist something that you normally give to your team members and they assess it for themselves? Or is this something you as an Agile coach kind of sits down with them? Because it sounds like you're challenging it with them as they go through. So I was interested a little bit about the kind of like the process of it.
I love it. That is a great question. I do have another checklist for the second scenario, which is working with the thing itself. Normally, this one I'm talking with a few people. Normally, it found out with managers, directors, someone inside of the team. Normally falls with the SDM and the SRM, and I ask them to fulfill this, and then I do an interview with them later on using the checklist to basically uh, draw a map of what questions do I need to make and understand the problems that they have. And the reason for that is, are you able to use this with the thing itself and work it together? Yes. I just have a bigger one. Let me see if I have it easily so I can show. But this one is unfortunately, I think, only on Portuguese. Let me double check. Yep, there we go. Or it is this one. And the reason for that is because this actually goes more in roles, artifacts, and events, and is a simplified version, but with way, way, way more information on the sense of what is expected, right? Because as you guys see, it's just a checklist. This other one. In this one, if I do a zoom up, so basically this is I'm checking: do you have a product owner, service request manager? Okay, how do we evaluate in Kanban? And then I have the SRM explain it and where this information is coming from, which in this case, let me just open, is coming from this article from David Anderson, right? Going back, if I zoom in, I even have what is I'm expecting on the product owner, and this is the product owner, how it's explained on the Scrum Guide itself. Then I do the same thing for the developers, and I'm saying, okay, for the Kanban, you should utilize the same concept of the Scrum, which is basically what we have on the Scrum Guide. And I go forward, and then the idea is for each one of them, instead of just saying you do or not, which is really simple, is 0 or 1, I'm putting more information. So basically what we do is like, in this, I actually run normally in Scotia with the things we coach, which is you evaluate on which one of these topics. If you are green, you are excellent, no impediments. Until red, which is big impediments, completely blocked. The thing is completely blocked. And then the orange ones that have an arrow, if the arrow is up, is some impediments. The thing is impacted, but the situation is getting better. Arrows to the sides is we have some impediments, progress is impacted, but we are basically stagnant. And then down is we do have some impediments, progress is impacted, and the situation is going down, probably you're going to ask. And the yellow one is we do have some impediments, but the thing is not impacted. So it's like, oh, I have some problems, but probably we don't need to treat it right now. Let's check. So I put in this one like an example. And in this one, what is really interesting is if you guys look, it's not a bad one, but then this was run specifically with a team in Scotia, and they told me the product increment is an X. And I was like, but you're telling me the developers are doing excellent work. The Scrum Master and your product owner are okay. In this case, was a service delivery manager. Your sprint backlog, which is your backlog, is working. Your daily is going down, but we can work with that. And the retrospective is good. It's not a bad scenario, but how did the product is going bad? So what actually happened here is we talked with the product owner, which was a director, and what she told me was like, yeah, I love my team. They work great. They are excellent. And their job is migrating data from one place to another. And what was happening there was, yeah, we migrate the data, and then the client, whoever asked it, say, it's not in the place that I need. I cannot access it. And it was, what the hell? How this is happening? And then she say, because we needed to start to work, and they don't tell us where they want it. So basically what was the solution in this case was we're going to put a hard definition of ready, which is you need to know where these items need to be migrated to. And her answer was, but I will not be able to. And I was like, that's fine. Tell them you need it. If we start to work, you put in the wrong place and they complain, you tell them, I ask that information. It's going to take more time because now I have to redo all my work. So basically what we put in system is a system that tells, if you're not telling that information, it's going to take more time. We don't do miracles because we are guessing where we should put it, right? And this is more helpful for things specifically, I think, Alan. Okay. The other one I normally use more to evaluate a group of things or evaluate a company itself.
And looking at your checklist, at what stage do you use this with the team? Because obviously we start with what we do. You might have a new team that could be quite daunted by some of the things that they see on this checklist. Is there a right time? Do you just show them half of it? Because in Kanban, we have this concept of overreaching. If you look at this, they might get overwhelmed by all of the things that they've potentially got to do. So I was just kind of thinking, is there a right time for this?
That is a good point. So being honest, if I'm talking like someone hired me to do a consultant, it's the right time and not even debating. And I already know what will happen is I will find resistance. I will find some people will when I'm going to show this then and later on interview be resistant. And what I normally do there is I use I do think I have, if I don't, sorry. I use my charisma to try to steer them into my direction that I am trying to help you. I'm not going to uh, be, sorry my wording here, a pain in your
Ass.
my main objective here is to help you, right? And if you tell me, I have Rega's rules. And what normally happens is they see I have it, and then I start getting messages directly saying, hey, Rodrigo, X is happening. This is not right. X person did that, which was not what we agreed on. Because when they tell me the problem which is happening here is X, and I tell whoever hired me, which is normally a director or a VP, and they ask Rodrigo who it is, not going to tell you. But this is happening. I already validated. And I start asking other people if they see the problem. Because sometimes, and this happened pretty recently, let's say you, Alan, say to me that the support itself to the client is a problem. We are having a problem there, and other people goes, yeah, it's not the support itself, it's this process, and they discover there are two different documents telling how we do support in the company. So okay, that what the person was telling me is it was half true. They were hiding that they are actually benefiting of telling this is bad because probably they want to go up. Not going to use this against them, but I normally validates. If I talk about things that I work on Scotia, what normally happens is uh, the person who have SDM or Scrum Master or Delivery Manager is having problems. Our director identifies and we do a coaching plan with them. And then it goes in the Kanban direction. And the last one that I did, Alan, basically I had, I think, 4 PowerPoints because we use a PowerPoint just because it's more pretty. Don't ask me why. We love PowerPoints in Scotia. It happens, okay? But we have a list that I think had around 20 items of improvement. And what I put on the size is, we are not doing that now. We're not doing that now. We are doing this after this one. Because we could identify more stuff we can do, but you need to, okay, what we can do right now, let's go little by little, because if we don't do that, it's going to be overwhelming for the thing itself, right? So in this case, on the other one that I showed you guys, I will just stop my sharing because we are more talking. If I need, I share my screen again. One of the items we had was we need to break up this thing itself in 3 things. And I had like, wait, but we need to be aware of this, and I informed not the thing itself, but I informed both the Scrum Master and the director, which was playing the product role, and they were, we are not sure. But after we implemented some of the changes, they were like, now we get it, why we should, and we actually see the 3 things inside as you were telling us. And then we split it in 3 things, and we did a special things for them, which is the things are meeting daily if they need to, because they are really performing things, to be honest with you guys. And even when they evaluate, it shows. and they were doing just 2 weeklies in the beginning with everyone doing. And the reason for that was the director say, I need to have this, I need to speak. And she told me, I'm not going to lie, it's more of a status report. And I was like, if you need that, I'm not going to fight. I prefer to remove it, not going to lie to you, but let's see how it goes. And they're still doing that. And this was, I think, 6 or 8 months ago, was last year.
Hey, any questions from the group? If not, I'm just going to have to keep firing questions at Rodrigo. Anyone else? Javier, you've got a question.
Hi, Rodrigo. It's good to see you again. We met in a training together. I have a question based on my experience. So your checklist is really good. I love it personally, but the first big barrier I see is the common language. So when you enter into a new organization, what I usually, I experience is you have maybe a leader that has buy-in. He encourages you, he supports you to get there. But team members, you confront them with this checklist or any kind of leader, most of them will say, I don't understand the terms. Maybe they practice some of them. They don't even know what you mean with your language. So for me, the first kind of barrier is teach them or some kind of agreement of the common language, which then goes to the second topic for me, which is how much time until you develop this common agreement of common language, or how much time does it take for you to perform this maturity quick checklist with the teams, since probably you need to explain most of those terms. So just those challenges, you could comment. Thank you.
That is an excellent question with multiple questions inside it. So let's go little by little. That's why I showed the other one. If you saw the ones that I normally use, everything has the explanation for that, right? I'm not expecting let me just, yeah, there we go. Thank you, Alan. Basically, I'm not expecting them to know in this case, right? So in this scenario, even for the product owner, which was a director, we have the Confluence space, which has exactly this one. We clone it and has all this information, and then we go one by one and tell, can you read that with us? Do you want me to read and explain it to you? And then, are you sure? Can you teach me back what I just told you, just to make sure? And then, okay, now answer, right? This one, I'm expecting the person to know a little about it, because we are already going, you are doing somewhat Kanban. You are a person that is a facilitator, is working with this thing, know their process. I will be more worried if you say, I have no idea what this is. Okay, let's do it forehand. I'm fine. But I will be, oh, okay, why this person is the facilitator, why this person is the SRM, doesn't have an idea what is happening, another red flag. The other thing you asked is like, you need some kind of common language. This is completely true. And I think that is, to be honest, the biggest challenge wherever you go. Doesn't matter here in Canada, Brazil, things in Europe, America, is that persons have different understanding of what you're talking about. If I just say, let's do a hetero, and ask you guys, tell me what a hetero is, probably we'll have 5 different answers. And it will be even worse if I ask, let's do a review, right? Let's talk what a review is. Someone will say, oh, it's the PowerPoint presentation we have. Other folks will tell, oh, it's actually when we show the product to the final client after X time. So we need to have this. So my take on that is, this is where you need some kind of internal training. It can be an external person like me, Alec, and normally the main advantage of that is you are putting someone from outside of the company to tell you what is the standards that people are using in other places without being polluted by your own. Because normally you do have your set and you want to see what other people are doing. And I think everyone should have some kind of basic training inside. So what I do currently have in Scotia, and we are doing this from time to time, I do have 3 decks, which I call Agile Fundamentals. The first one is Agile Fundamentals, and is Scrum based. So basically this one is like, let's talk more about the Scrum. I do talk about Kanban. I do show that image with the, I think, 40 different methods. So people say, hey, this is not only Scrum. We have our other stuff, but this training, I focus on this. Be aware. I have a Kanban version. These decks are similar when we talk about Agile, but they split when we actually talk about execution. In the activity on them is pretty different. So the activity on the Scrum one is basically doing Scrum to create, if you guys search, it's called it Scrum Moon Tour. It's pretty fun because you see people creating different stuff. And the second one, basically what I do is I ask them to run the Kanban board game, the 20-day ones, so they actually can experiment. And one of the things I tell them, you can see like, you don't have a blocker column there. I can show already some stuff there. So it's also great. And the last version I have is I'm calling a leadership one. And the reason for that is we don't do a lot of activities in this one. I basically, instead of doing a 1 hour and a half-ish activity, basically I deep dive what is expected from you as a leader. How do you actually support these things? Why they are doing this way? What is the advantage for you? How can you support these folks to go in that direction? Right, so you need some kind of thing like that, Javier. And what I can tell you is there are quite few folks which are only today internal trainings. If you search about it, there are companies that have persons that their main job is being an internal training, and the second job they have is being an internal consultant. And then they basically go to a place, do training, do internal consultant for them, and then they go back where they are and they keep doing that. Some other companies even, instead of having just one person, they have multiple ones, and they call these folks like a COE, which is a center of excellence. But definitely, we do need common language.
Thank you.
I couldn't find the unmute button. Okay, so Maru's put us an essay in the chat channel.
I'm looking at it right now. So let me see. First question. Did you transform the checklist in some kind of internal scoring list for the team to help track the evolution through time? That was suggested, the second one that I showed. And this was meant to be the Scrum Master responsibility. And again, the reason I'm calling the Scrum Masters is because it's basically their role inside the company. It's even in their paycheck, but not necessarily is a Scrum Master itself on the sense of the hat they are wearing. But they didn't keep through it. And we are trying to fight again and say, hey, you need to do this, because this gives us information. What they are afraid is like, you are going to compare the things, and that's not our objective. I don't want to compare. Sorry. What I want is, when I go to help you, where do I need to put my time? Right? How do I guarantee that I'm putting my time in the thing that it will bring most value for you, most value for the team, and in the end of the day, most value to the bank, right? Second one, did you create a more detailed version to set of Kanban checklists for individual events? I have not. Normally, when I did that, it falls on, okay, we need more training, and then you need to know how to evaluate. Or what we normally do is we ask the person to put your meetings in my agenda and let me be just a silent bird, or if you prefer, a silent bug. Or a fly in the wall, and I will be quiet, and we will pretend I'm not even there, and I will listen to see what is happening, and I can help you with that. Third, did you create a no Scrum version of this checklist? I think your meaning is like no Scrum and not Kanban, like more general. I have not.
No,
but
not Scrum, non-Scrum, meaning there is no Scrum. It seems that there was something else.
Oh, I created for Kanban, basically. So the one I show it is like both. It has Kanban and Scrum side by side. And the reason for that is because we have things doing both. And when I created it, I decided, okay, let me do for both instead of having different places. That was the main reason. But my take is always, you can, in this kind of checklist, you can pivot to your liking on what you're doing inside your company, right? I do love these 5 steps that I showed, which is goes from green to red. And you basically can even do that for, even if you're, let's say, and I hope not, even if you're doing safe, let's evaluate the key events and artifacts you have on safe and just say how you are in each one of them. And then you can, okay, where I will put my time on, and I will help these guys to improve. And the last thing, you can compare the things using anything and everything. Completely true. I will just tell you one thing, including the checked box on the checklist. So the question went about internal scoring. So you can do that, but I don't like it. And the reason for that is because you turn it in a competition. Every time you transform something in a competition, people will try to achieve it in scrupulous ways, or even lie to you bluntly because someone will make, oh, if this thing is better, they deserve more money, more bonus, etc. And then if it becomes a target, is not a good metric, right? I can tell you, I have a slide for things that are using specifically story points. And I would say like, there is like a green, not greenish, orange line in the top, which is really balanced. When I'm explaining story points and I say, we will not compare things story points because that's not our objective. What do you think is the first question I have every time I show this slide? Are we going to compare things story points? Is the first question every time. It's like, can you not see? It's like, I think 20% of the slide is just this message. And this is the first questions they make. Are we going to compare? Is someone comparing? And I'm always telling we are not going to compare things because the objective is to identify problems so then we can solve the problem. So let's say your team is having a problem. Let's say it's completely red and Javier is completely green, right? And there is the following context. Javier team is the most senior team of the company. Most of the developers have been working for us for 5 years, where I know exactly what they are good and what they are bad, because they failed sometimes. And when we select a project for them, we are giving something we're sure they're going to deliver. Yes, they're going to be great. Your team, we just hired 5 juniors. 2 guys just came, is their first job, and they started working last week. Completely different context, why we are comparing these 2 things, right? Of course, I'm not going to put time to work with Javier. They are fine. I'm going to put my time to work with you guys.